Welcome back to the Camp Chronicles podcast. As we edge closer to the summer, we thought it would be important to talk about the worries during camp. We did actually ask over on our social media for your worries, so we're going to kind of go through them and then mention some of our own thoughts and feelings that we've had leading up to the summer.
So the very first one that we had is that this person was nervous about flying for the first time but with a suitcase, and then nervous of what to do kind of when they arrive at the airport. To be fair though, the more I think about it, I guess it is a bit like nerve-wracking flying with like a big suitcase, because if it doesn't arrive or it goes lost or it goes missing or anything like that, I think I would probably have a bit of a meltdown, to be honest.
My first time I got to Newark Airport and my suitcase actually broke. Like, they'd snapped the zips off it, so I completely understand your worry and your panic. But I would advise you not to put actual padlocks on your zips because it makes it look more suspicious and the more likely to break your zips if you do that. But if you are travelling and you want locks for like hostels and stuff, just take them, put them in your suitcase and then use them for travelling. Also, I think it is very daunting, the fact that like you get to JFK and you might be on your own. If you are travelling into the city for the first time and you've never been to America before, to be honest, I would probably recommend saving that little bit of money and just getting an Uber or some sort of transport into the city. That'll just get you from one place to the other direct. Whereas if you are a returner, I would recommend getting the air train because it is cheaper and you kind of know how to get yourself around America.
Yeah, my first summer, because obviously I flew in a few days early as well. I flew into JFK, and to get from JFK into Manhattan, I got a Uber, or not an Uber, it might have just been like a normal taxi, and it was something like $50 or $60. So it was ridiculously expensive. But like you said, I was by myself. I'd not really been in New York, America by myself. Hadn't used the subway before, so I was a bit like, so I thought, you know, I'll just save myself the hassle. But then every other time I've ended up using the subway and the air train, and it is pretty easy and straightforward. Another thing as well about flying with baggage, what I would suggest is if you've got like your hand luggage or your backpack, just pack like a few essentials in there just in case, touch wood, it doesn't happen, but if your suitcase did go missing. Or there was a girl who came to my camp second summer. I think one of her flights had got cancelled. She had like a random connection in like Amsterdam or somewhere like that. And they'd left their suitcases out in like the rain, I think, for a while, and she didn't have a hard shell suitcase. It was more of like a duffely bag type suitcase. So all her clothes were absolutely soaked. She had nothing to wear. So because she'd also missed our arrival date at camp, I went to pick her up from the train station. She was like, I've got nothing to wear, I've got none of this. So I was like lending her clothes and stuff. So that is another thing. If you do lose suitcase, or if something like that happens to you, like, people at camp are generous and they will want to help you, so there's a very high chance that someone will either loan you some clothes or they might take you to Walmart or Target or somewhere like that so you can buy some stuff to kind of set you up. Again, touch wood, I've never had it happen to me yet where my suitcase has gone missing, so I'm just praying that it isn't this year when it happens.
Yeah, 3 of the guys from camp last year, their suitcases went missing. All 3 of them on the same flight from Scotland, I think it was. So they were like walking around in just like lost property camp clothes, basically.
Yeah.
But what was good for them was they were actually able to order loads of clothes and then get it reimbursed off the airline. And then their suitcases eventually arrived at camp like a week later, so they were able to buy all brand new clothes and also get their own clothes back. But just off the back of what Ellen said about hard shell suitcases and like the other type of suitcases, I would highly recommend getting a hard shell for the exact reason that Ellen said, especially just when you're travelling around full stop. I think they're more durable as well, and they're less likely to, you know, rip or break. So I would recommend that, especially if you're like going through the streets of New York and busy places.
Yeah. Primark's great for suitcases, but it is worth investing in a decent suitcase brand. Like, my trip suitcase that I got, like, they're on like sale at the minute. I keep getting like thingies on Instagram and TikTok, I don't know why, that they're all on sale, and literally they cost the same price as it does to get a Primark one. And I'm not shading Primark at all, but the only suitcase I've ever had from Primark, the handle that like you pull up, didn't work very well. It was like rattling all around, the wheel came off. So it is worthwhile just spending a little bit of money to get one that'll be durable and it'll last you.
100%. The next one that people actually mentioned was anxiety of the unknown and training and orientation. Now, I think this is a massive anxiety for people just across the board, that being first timers and returners. Anxiety of the unknown is actually, in a way, quite exciting because you don't know what's going to happen. And I think you have to embrace that feeling because everything's going to be new to you and you're going to be able to learn so much from that process. And then in terms of training and orientation for me, honestly, it's going to just be a lot of icebreakers. And to some people, that is their worst nightmare. But as soon as you do the first few, you just get into the rhythm of things and it just becomes normal. And training on orientation, you won't necessarily learn everything. I think being a camp counsellor is an on the job learning experience. But just taking all the information that you're given, because it does set you up to start learning more than just the basics.
Yeah. I actually made a TikTok the other week about the, I guess, kind of like anxiety of the unknown part of that. Basically saying like, before camp, I watched like every single bit of camp content I could possibly find. More, not because I was worried about going, but more just because I was so excited about going and I was waiting for like 2.5 years, that I just was like wanting to watch everything to get excited. But a lot of people obviously go on TikTok to like try and find answers to questions and things like that they might have. It doesn't matter how many TikToks and YouTube videos and things you watch or returners you speak to, there will always be like an element of the unknown. But like you said, obviously that is the exciting part of it. Like you could literally listen to every single one of our podcasts. Maybe there's some dedicated listeners out there that have, and you could still go to camp and things will still happen that take you by surprise. But hopefully it's like by surprise in a good way. And then again, like with the training slash orientation week, we did obviously make a whole episode kind of talking about orientation and generally what happens and what to expect. Again, it'll vary between camps, but kind of I feel like most camps do a lot of similar things. And it will be like a bit nerve-wracking at first because you're with so many new people and you might not know anyone and you've travelled and you're far and you're away from home. But again, like you've just got to kind of flip it and be like, well, actually, no, that's really exciting and actually not that many people get to do this. And it kind of puts it into perspective a bit more, or makes you feel a little bit less worried, hopefully, if you can manage to look at it that way.
I think something we do as well at my camp, I don't know if you're the same, we have a WhatsApp group chat. And what we've been doing is we've been organising a monthly Zoom and like different faces have been joining and the same faces have joined over the past few months. And it's really just helped people to settle that anxious feeling of, I'm not going to know anybody when I get off the bus. Because honestly, as a first timer, I think arriving at camp is one of the most like anxiety ridden moments because you get off the bus and everyone's jumping and hugging people and it's almost a little bit overwhelming for some people. Some people thrive in environments like that, but just getting to know people's names, people's faces, and just having that conversation with returners or with newbies. These people might not be your best friends at camp, but at least you know that you're going to have a familiar face. So definitely see if that's something your camp does and try and reach out or even try and be the person to create that and get a group call going.
Yeah, it's like it seems scary to be the one to like message people first, but most people, especially if it's another new staff member, are going to be in the same boat and they're going to want to be speaking to people, or if it's a returner, they're going to be happy to speak about camp anyways. So you've got to put yourself out there and be the first one to kind of message. The next one that we had as well does kind of like merge, I guess, with this one that we just discussed, and it was they are feeling overwhelmed and anxious that they're maybe not going to be cut out for camp life. Camp life is going to be very different to normal life, but also like very similar in some ways, better in some ways, maybe not as good in others, but it's just different. And for the most part, I would say like about 95% of people are cut out for camp life when they get there. Do you know what I mean? Most people do research before they go to camp, so they kind of know what they're expecting. So if you've done a bit of research and you've got an idea of what to expect, then you should be okay. Obviously, sometimes you get there and it is just like maybe not what you're expecting or it is too overwhelming. But if you are having those feelings, you need to really try and like stick it out and like ride it out, because in orientation, I feel like that's when most people end up leaving if they're going to leave. and they only maybe are there for like a week. And I mean, some people know like deep down like this just isn't going to be right for me. But most people that probably think about leaving, if you can get through that first week and a bit and push through, and then you kind of settle into like a new normal and a routine, then it's actually fine, isn't it?
Yeah, like you said, I always say to people that panic, like, stick orientation out. It's so important to do it because when you actually get to when the campers arrive, it's completely different. That atmosphere is different, and you almost start running on that adrenaline of daily camp life. And I think you won't fully know that you're cut out for it until you actually try out the routine of camp. And I think once you kind of get into the routine of things, like you said, you start to understand what daily life at camp is. I think you are cut out for camp if you're hardworking and you're determined and you want to be there. I think if you go into the summer not wanting to be there or being unimpressed by things, you probably aren't going to be cut out for it because you've got yourself in that mindset. But it's very easy to get yourself out of it as well, but just talk to the right people, and that's how you'll kind of know if you're cut out for it. But just be, as long as you're hardworking and you're determined to make the summer the best it possibly can be, you'll be able to get through anything at camp.
Yeah, and I think maybe one of the biggest reasons I would say people end up leaving, apart from them getting there and realizing that it is actually hard work and they weren't ready for that, is usually if people have got stuff going on at home already, like I don't know, with like other family members or friends, and then being away from that makes it hard, or something might happen at home and then people have to go home because of that. So I mean, but it can work two ways, do you know what I mean? Like, if you've got stuff going on at home, going to camp can almost be like that distraction that you needed, and it'll like help you, and maybe bring you out your shell a bit more, help you find your happy place again. Or being away from it can be really hard, but it's important definitely to just like talk to the people around you. You don't have to talk to everyone around you about it and how you're feeling, but like, even if you can confide in like one or two people, especially like maybe a more senior member of staff, they're going to have experience dealing with this before, and they can probably try and help to kind of help you work your way around it as well.
Just off the back of like home stuff that Ellen said, I'm very open about it. Like last year, I was going through a lot of struggles, things were going on at home, I just wasn't in the best headspace. But getting to camp, it completely changed my mindset and the way I was, and I almost like found myself again. So camp is an environment where you do find yourself and you find new parts of yourself that you love, and you outgrow your old life. So just kind of stick with it, ride the roller coaster that is camp, and I can promise you, you'd much rather be at summer camp in America than at home working a boring job.
So very true.
My first summer, I got very sick and ended up actually racking up a $10,000 bill, which kept coming through the post. I think they probably cost just as much for them to post the amount of bills they sent me. But at the start of the summer, I ended up getting tonsillitis. It was my own fault because I was sharing my water bottle with people because others didn't have one. And I am very much prone to tonsillitis if I share drinks. So I caught that. And then that spiraled on to having a whole allergic reaction to the amoxicillin I was given. And then it ended up where I started having these really bad migraines that were like making me lose vision in my right eye and feelings in my right side of my body. And I did actually rack up a $10,000 bill, but here I am 4 years on, going back to camp. Trust me, the health centre at your camp or around where you are, you will have somewhere to go to and someone to help you. And we very fortunately have about 5 or 6 nurses on site and one doctor every week that comes, and you can go to them for anything. It doesn't cost anything unless you're getting obviously like medication prescribed, and camp has to go out and buy that from CVS. But honestly, you're gonna probably find yourself getting sick if you're not staying hydrated, you're not eating enough food, you're not getting enough sleep. So just make sure you're doing all them things, and I don't think you'll have much to worry about. And also take your vitamins.
I do fully understand that one though, like about getting sick abroad, and like if you are ill in like a different country and you're away from like your own home comforts and stuff like that, it is like, it's not great, is it? There's a there is a lot of, not illnesses, well I guess illnesses, like little things that do spread around camp like quite easily, I will say. Main one that always happens is like pink eye, like conjunctivitis. I feel like if I'm gonna hold my hands up, I did end up having it in like, was it first summer? I think it was first summer. And I remember like being on the plane coming back from Orlando when we'd been on the 10th grade Orlando trip, and my eyes were like so bright red. And I went to the health centre and they were like, no, it's just allergies. I'm like, I'm not allergic to anything. As I woke up the next morning and my eyes were a bit crusty, and I don't know how I ended up getting it. And I know it's gross, but it is just one of those things. But they got his eye drops and I got it fixed and it was fine. And what's that other one that everyone always gets when you like people use like dirty towels? It's like one on your skin.
Impetigo.
Impetigo. That's it, yeah. Impetigo always seems rampant at camp. Like you've got to think like you've got little kids that are gonna be carrying a lot of things and maybe aren't the cleanest and are used to their parents doing a lot for them. And these things do happen at camp. That's not to scare anyone, it's more to prepare. But they will always be treated. Do you know what I mean? You go to the health centre and you can get cream for it, or they'll give you medication or whatever it is that you need to kind of help. And also if you are like really sick, hopefully you won't mind me mentioning, my boyfriend did get pretty sick towards the end of camp last year, and he ended up in the health centre for like 2 days pretty much, and he missed like part of like Olympics colour war. But if you are sick, like they will help you, let you sleep in the health centre where it's air-conned and you've not got other people around, and you can just like sleep it off. So at camp it's fine. Maybe when you're like traveling post camp, I can see like there being a bit of stress there, but like Summer said, just make sure you drink your water, take your vitamins, make sure you're like trying to keep yourself healthy, and don't let yourself get sick, because you can easily get very sick if you're like sleep deprived and not eating and drinking enough, can't you?
And as long as you have travel insurance that
Yes.
covers you, read the small print, you'll be absolutely fine. Like I said, I
Mhm.
didn't pay a penny to the American doctors. I paid, I think, £60 excess to my travel
Mhm.
insurance to Direct Line, and they paid the rest of the bill. So
Yeah.
don't worry about it. Just make sure that you've got your travel insurance, and it's the same as going
Mhm.
anywhere else. You'll be fine as long you'll be covered.
I think most agencies do provide some level of health insurance, so it's definitely worth checking. But if you've got any sort of pre-existing medical conditions, they're usually not covered. So I know I always have to take out extra insurance when I go, because otherwise I wouldn't be covered. And God forbid anything did happen, then I'm not going to be wanting to fork out $10,000 like you would have had to as well. So yeah, just make sure you do double check the fine print, like you said. But other than that, should be fine. And then the last one that we got sent through on Instagram was being nervous about making friends to go travelling with. And I honestly couldn't tell you how travel plans end up coming about, and but it always seems to fall in place every year. I don't know.
Yeah, like last year I had no travel plans, and then the last 2 weeks I ended up booking Texas and with a bunch of the lifeguards who,
Mm.
bearing in mind I'd spent pretty much none of the summer with. They were on my night off, but I hadn't spent loads of time with them. But I was like, girls, I want to go traveling. They were like, me too. I was like, I want to go these places. They were like, me too. And then I ended up booking a week in Texas with them. So
Mm.
literally, like, you could end up booking your travels like the last week of
Mhm.
camp. It just happens. People say, I want to go here, I want to go here, and then you kind of just like join on with each other, I think. One thing
Mhm.
I will say is please don't book your travels before you go. Even if you've
Mhm.
made friends in that group chat that you've got for camp, do not book travels, because the likelihood is there's a 50-50 chance that when you get to camp, you'll still be friends with them, but they'll not necessarily be the people that you travel with, because you might grow
Mhm.
bonds closer with other people. I know
Mhm.
it's nice to have like ideas in your mind beforehand. This is more for the first timers than the returners.
Mhm.
But just hold off a little bit. Know where you want to go, obviously, but like don't book things just yet. Obviously, it's different for you, Ellen, because I know you
Mhm.
have stuff booked.
Yeah.
But it's just I always like to remind people to just be careful.
Yeah. The stuff that I've got booked is stuff that like obviously James is coming out, we're doing Disney Universal for 2 weeks. That's like something that we knew we were gonna do. And like my first summer, again, my mum and her partner came out and we went in Orlando again for nearly 2 weeks. But I didn't book anything or have anything planned for that first part of my travels first summer, and it just all fell into place. Again, second summer, like you were saying, we really didn't have very much booked until, honestly, I think I remember sitting during Olympics, like trying to book some stuff, just like sneakily on my phones, because like people make plans last minute, and like you're saying, like the person that you meet on the very first day of camp, like on the bus on the way to the airport, might not be your best friend like 3 weeks in. Not because necessarily you fell out, or maybe sometimes people do fall out, but like if you're, I don't know, a cabin counsellor for lower camp and they're a lifeguard for upper camp, you're probably not gonna like cross paths too much depending on the size of your camp. So yeah, don't really stress too much about having to make friends and get things booked straight away. There's always going to be flights, there's always going to be hotels. Yes, if you leave it a little bit later, you might have to pay a bit more. Or on the flip side, sometimes if you can get last minute deals to go places. And there'll always be groups that you can kind of like tag along with here there. Like second summer, me and Stephen like travelled together the whole time pretty much, but when we went to Nashville we were with one group of people, then we went to Texas with kind of another group, then we split off, did our own thing, and then we went back to Chicago and met with another group, and then Wisconsin we're seeing other people. So even if you've only got like one or two other people that you travel with, you're pretty much guaranteed that there'll be other people from camp somewhere where you go, or maybe even a different camp that you end up meeting.
100%. And also, like, the 2 years that I've actually travelled, I haven't had everything booked while I've been travelling. That might stress you out.
Yeah, no, I
But
have as well.
like, we were in, I think it was LA, and we were on the bus down to San Diego, and we still didn't have anywhere to stay.
Oh wait, that is a bit stressful.
Like that, to that extent. And like, I remember we were in the Airbnb last year in Dallas, and we had nowhere to stay for after Austin, I'm pretty sure. So like, I'm saying don't stress,
Yeah.
but like, just examples of me, and I was absolutely fine and had ended up having places to stay and had a great time. So just stick it out. You'll be absolutely fine. I'm sure there'll be at least one other person that'll want to go similar places as you, or maybe other people will open your mind to new places that'll be fun to visit. So just kind of bear that in mind, that 99% of the time you will find someone to travel with.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like that kind of rounds up all the ones that we had sent in by other people, like sent in on Instagram and stuff. But there's a few others that we kind of came up with that I think a lot of people are probably also nervous about, or things that we were maybe nervous about going to camp for the first time. First one being for me, when I was supposed to be going as a basketball counsellor, before I got switched to cabin because of COVID, I was stressing to hell that I was not going to be good enough to coach basketball at camp, because all my experience was basically coaching girls who are like under 14s, and I'd be going to camp in America where basketball is a much bigger sport, and trying to coach, or it's not really like intense coaching really at my camp, it's more just like fun games, basketball to kids that were going to be probably better than me, way taller than me, and older than the girls that I'd previously coached, and boys. And I was so stressed that I was not going to be good enough at that. I don't know if you can relate at all, because you were volleyball, weren't you?
I can actually fully relate, because I got hired as a volleyball specialist, and I remember like the absolute panic coming through me the closer it got to camp, because I'd never played volleyball in my life, and kind of I just said yes to it because I was open to just doing something new. But I had the obviously worry that I wasn't going to be good enough. The kids were going to know more than what I was going to know. And luckily it worked out for me that I didn't end up actually being at volleyball for long. But yeah, it is definitely a worry, and I think it's natural for people that are trying the sport out and teaching it as just a hobby, not as people that have actually coached before. But I just think like they wouldn't have hired you for no reason. So kind of just believe in yourself, and believe in yourself that camp believe in you. So there's nothing that camp won't teach you.
Yeah.
So, and you'll likely have a team around you. Unlike me when I was at volleyball.
And also, like, if you are going to be an activity counsellor for a specific sport or something like that, I don't know, or if you're going to be like in arts and crafts, unless you're going to like a sports specific camp or a specific theatre camp or something like that, the kids aren't all going to be professionals, and they're probably not all going to want to like go and play, like in my example, a full-sided like 5v5 game of basketball and need like full-on refereed every single game. Like for the most part, they're going to want to go and they want to play like knockout. They're going to want to play like around the world. They're going to want to just 1v1 each other. Like they're really not bothered about like necessarily learning new skills. You'll probably have like a few kids that do maybe want to learn, or like they might want a little bit more like one-to-one because that's the thing they're passionate about. But for the most part, most kids are just happy to be there and happy to take part in anything, really.
Definitely, and like you said, unless you're going to a specific sport camp, it's going to be a lot more relaxed. And for the kids that are wanting that one-on-one training, you'll likely have another member of staff that will be able to give that, or it's a good learning experience for you to be able to learn them one-on-one coaching skills. Another worry that I had personally, and I think this was more going into return in summer, was I gonna be good enough for the job because I already had the previous year's experience. So I felt like there was a lot more higher expectations on me than there was the previous year. But I just want to say that them expectations are only in your mind and in your head. And I think it's more so like your anxiety around your abilities rather than other people looking down on you and being like, you're not good enough, or you should be doing this, or you should be doing that. Obviously, you know the job, so naturally you should be helping the people that you're working with who are doing it for the first time, but just don't put that pressure on to be able to remember everything as soon as you get into it. Once you're into the swing of things, I think naturally things come back to you.
Yeah, and also like as a returner, you're not going to have came across every single eventuality and situation before, especially like if you've only done one summer at camp previously, or even 2 or 3 summers. Like we've done 3 summers. My sessions are 7 weeks long with the kids there. That's only 21 weeks worth of working at camp that I've done before. Like that's not even a full year's worth of work. There's no way that you could be expected to know what to do in every single situation. You just have to think on your feet, don't you? So yeah, if that is something that you are worried about, like maybe putting that pressure on yourself and thinking like, God, I've got to be perfect at this and do everything right. Like as Hannah Montana has once said, nobody's perfect. So just keep trying, just do your best, and you'll be fine.
Very wise words there, Ellen. Very wise words.
Always. Hannah Montana / Miley Cyrus provides many wise words. What else did we have? Another one actually that I think I was a bit nervous about, which I think a lot of people are probably also nervous about, is like actually living in a cabin with other people and with the kids. Most obviously sleepaway camps, that's going to be the setup for you. Some people might be out of bunk, but for the majority, you're going to be in bunk, and that's not something that would like ever happen here. Do you know what I mean? Like if you're taking a group of kids on like a residential, you're not going to be sleeping in the same room as them. They'll have their own room and you'll have your own room. So being in that environment does feel a little bit weird at first, but then it just becomes so normal that when they're not there and when the cabin's empty, you kind of like miss it. It's like just being surrounded by like loads of your little best friends, and then all of a sudden camp ends and they're ripped away from you.
It's funny you said that about the residential though, because I obviously recently took some of the year 5 students on a residential, and my room was like joined to theirs, but obviously there was a wall in between us, and it felt weird not being in the room with them. I like didn't know when I should be in there, when I shouldn't be in there. Like I felt bad lurking around the room and like chatting with them. Whereas at camp, it's just natural because you live there and you sleep there. So just be mindful that obviously, it is going to be weird at first, but you'll get used to it and you'll get into the swing of things and it'll be comfortable. A massive one, not liking the food. Oh my days, every year it's something I do honestly dread going back to camp. It's not that the camp food isn't nice, it's just that I personally don't like it. I'm honestly not a big a fan of American food unless it's like cooked in somebody's house, full stop. Just because I'm very fussy with processed food and my stomach does not bode well with
Yeah.
processed food. Although I did have a Wingstop for the first time at the weekend, and
Ooh.
it was so nice. So I'm excited to try the American Wingstop. Probably will regret that, but it is a big camp worry, and I think it's because a lot of people, and you do hear a lot of stories that you don't eat a lot, but there will be loads of options. Like, it is literally down to me just being fussy and me not liking the food, rather than it being that there's no options. There's like, I'm pretty sure 4 different options at camp, at mine anyways, at each meal. So it is just down to me, and it is a normal worry to have. But honestly, don't knock it until you try it. That's
Yeah.
all I'm gonna say.
See, I'm like the total opposite. I wouldn't say there's any camp food that I dislike and that I wouldn't eat. There's some that I prefer more than others. The only thing that I'm a bit iffy with is when we have like taco bar and there's like the beef mince. It's more just the texture of it, like, just throws me off a bit, but literally everything else I'll eat. And to be honest, like, I find that going to camp and not having to think about what you're eating and what you're cooking and everything like that, not having to do your dishes, is like the nicest thing ever. Like, I'm a creature of habit at home. Like, I'll have the same breakfast and the same lunch, like literally every single day, just because I don't want to have to think about what I'm eating or like what I'm cooking and stuff. Sometimes I'll mix up the dinners, but my friends do take the mick out of us, because when I lived out after uni and like during uni, they know that I always would have the same thing, and they always take the mick out of us for it. But yeah, at camp you're obviously not having to think about any of that, so that kind of takes a bit of that stress off, which is nice. And yeah, like, you just got to try everything, like. And also, if you really, really don't like something, if you ask someone, there's a likelihood that they'll be able to get something else for you. If you think about it, not every single kid is going to like every single meal at camp also. So you're obviously not going to let a kid starve. They're not going to let a staff member starve. And there'll usually be options. Like, obviously you were saying, like, you're fussy with the food sometimes, but you always manage to eat, even if it is, what is it, your rice and your cucumber and stuff.
Rice, cucumber, and peppers.
There you go, that's it. Eh? You always will find something that you can eat. There's always some safe foods for you. So I can understand the stress, but for the most part, I think most people do end up being fine with it.
Yeah, and just to say that if anybody from my camp is listening, we're very grateful for how hard you work, especially the support staff cooking 3 meals a day. It's nothing on them and their cooking ability. It's more just my taste buds and how fussy I am. Like, my gran has to ask me every night, "What do you want for your tea?" Because she knows how fussy I am.
Yeah, the support staff do an insane job. I feel like we have briefly mentioned this before, but the amount of people that they cook for on the daily, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and like the amount of food that they produce is genuinely insane. And some of the meals like are not easy to do. Like, when you look at the volume of food that they're having to make as well, like, it is insane. So shout out all the support staff that work at camps. But yeah, I feel like that kind of rounds up the sort of like main worries of, like, obviously the ones we've sent and some others that we've thought of ourselves. If anybody does think of anything that they are panicking about and they want us to either discuss it in a future episode, which unfortunately there won't be many more episodes before we go to camp, maybe another like 2 or 3, I think, after this one. Or if you're just worried about it and want to talk to one of us, feel free to send us a DM or reach out to us on any of the social medias, and we'll definitely answer. But thank you all for listening as well, and hopefully you're getting prepared, ready it's probably like a month countdown to camp now, isn't it, for most people?
Yeah, can you believe it?
Um, and we will see you in next week's episode.